So, at this point, and I am
because
glad to have you here. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another segment of Grip TV. I'm your host, Warren Davis. I'm going to be doing something a little bit different today. There's an issue in America, the criminal justice reform issue. So I wanted to go to someone that I knew had that issue dear to their heart. I wanted to go to a community person, not just a politician, but I wanted to deal with it in the political arena. So I chose to go and see Curtis Jones Jr. Before I welcome Curtis to the show, I want to run through some of his bio and let you guys know exactly who we're talking to today. Curtis Jones Jr. is the Honorable Curtis Jones Jr. He represents the 4th District of Philadelphia, which includes Allegheny West, Belmont Village, East Falls, Manayunk, Overbrook Park, Roxborough, Winfield, and sections of West Philadelphia. Curtis also served as the Majority Leader from January the 2nd in City Council 2012 until January 4th, 2016. He's currently in his 3rd term. And he's also the Chairman of the Public Safety Committee, Commerce and Economic Development Committee, and he's Vice Chair for Parks and Recreation and Cultural Affairs. Curtis was involved in the legislation that made a change to the Philadelphia Home Rule Charter to make the Mayor's Commission on African American Males a permanent department. Curtis was also involved in Ban the Box, which takes the question out of the employment applications about whether you were in jail or not. He also was involved in the CBN bill, which allows police officers to use their own discretion when you're stopped on the street for an offense that really doesn't require jail to allow them to issue you a civil citation of $100 instead of you going to jail. He's also involved in the School District of Philadelphia partnership with the Philadelphia Eid Coalition. That is an Islamic event, and it recognizes both Al-Fitr, which is the end of the holy month of Ramadan, for those who don't know, and Al-Adha, which commemorates the Hajj. Curtis Jones also led the charge to enforce new public safety regulations for fire escapes. He created the Philadelphia Mortgage Diversion Program, which prevented thousands of residents from losing their homes, along with 2 moratoriums on sheriff sales. He also was involved in the Philadelphia Internship Tax Credit, which allows students to actually be paid and receive a stipend for them. He's also collaborated with District Attorney Seth Williams and former Mayor Michael Nutter on the witness intimidation law. And he authored a law for 5% of the city's annual community block development grant to be used for mixed-use property financing. Chris also launched a $1 million project for mixed-use developments all in his 1st term. He established the Roxborough Environmental Control District, which preserves the historic Manatona Farm, which is a wildlife habitat and green space in Roxborough. And he has a lot to do, or he's a leading advocate, I should say, for the environmental and economic impacts of Marcellus Shale. He's also a noted expert on community-based economic development. And under his leadership in different positions with the city, Curtis brought in over $583 million in municipal contract opportunities for women, minorities, and disabled-owned businesses. Curtis sits on a lot of committees, including the Pennsylvania Human Relations Committee, Pennsylvania Crime and Delinquency Committee, both appointments by Pennsylvania Governor Tom Wolf. He also serves on the Criminal Justice Advisory Board, co-chair also of the Special Committee on Criminal Justice Reform, which we're going to talk about and discuss with him today. He's also chair of the Special Investigative Committee examining city demolition procedures and operations, which both are appointed positions by Council President Darrell Clark. He's on a committee of the Pennsylvania Convention Center's Authority for Minority Advisory Committee, the Please Touch Museum, the Mann Music Center, and as a Philadelphia Gas Commissioner. This guy is actually the James Brown, the hardest working man in City Hall. All right, all that, let's welcome Curtis Jones to the show. Welcome, Curtis, to the show.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Thank you.
You're welcome. Welcome. Glad to have you. We're going to talk today about the Special Committee on Criminal Justice Reform. So I guess my first question for you, Councilman, would be, why do we need criminal justice system reform at all, and why do we need it now?
So when President Barack Obama decided to walk into a federal penitentiary, and when he got there, he looked at the fact that there were way too many African Americans, Latinos, brown people, and people that were poor and undereducated in those prisons. An issue when he catches a cold, the rest of America catches on. And if you look back to prior administrations, you have ebb and flow of an issue. There was a big epidemic in urban America about drug use, the war on drugs. And they thought they could incarcerate their way out of that problem. That if I catch somebody, a user or a dealer, and lock them away, then this thing would go away. And it did not. We failed the war on drugs. What we needed to focus on was to help the user, to eliminate the demand, to take away some of the core issues why people turn to drugs in the first place. So now there is a policy shift nationally to reduce the mass incarceration of urban black males in particular. There was one author who titled a book called Mass Incarceration of the Negro, the New Jim Crow. So it came to my mind in a ride from the West Coast with the national chair at the time of the NAACP. And the whole ride he was saying, well, why aren't young people joining the NAACP? Why aren't people gravitating to one of the most historic advocacy organizations for the Negro, Black, African American, whichever one of the titles you choose, depending on how old you are, agency, organization in the world. And what came to his mind in the discussion was that they weren't relevant to the issues of today. 1 out of 3 African American men has been incarcerated, is on probation or on parole. 1 out of 3. And what a lot of people don't know, and justice isn't just us. It is a machine. It is a grinder. It is something that once you're in, it is very difficult to get out of. And when a young person who may have an offense goes into a courtroom and says, I'm going to take this deal because I'm tired of being incarcerated. They kept me in here 6 months. And this isn't a real big thing. They don't understand the collateral consequences that comes with that guilty decision. There are 200 plus things they can never do again. You can't live in public housing. Whether it's your baby mama or your wife, as long as they have at least with the HUD or the housing authority, you're not allowed there. So it breaks up families. You can't be a postman like your dad. You can't do 200 different things. And that changes the trajectory of people's lives. Because now I have to follow this chalk line, and I can't work at my chosen profession even though it had nothing to do with the crime. So what we found out through further research is that there were a lot of disparities on how crime is treated. So crack got a different sentence than cocaine. Cocaine was the polite drug of the suburbs. Crack was the inexpensive, bald-headed cousin of that drug in the inner city. And you got more crime for dealing crack than you did for cocaine. And that's a disparity. The other thing that we discovered was justice by zip code. And if you live in Southwest where my daughter lives, bought a house, solid citizen, taxpayer, and renovated that house. Because she lives in that zip code, there is a presumption of not of innocence, but of guilt. So you're more likely to be stopped in a car. Hustlers and barbershops know, don't go through the 18th district if you're dirty, because they're going to stop you, as opposed to Chestnut Hill.
We definitely want to talk about that. I think
So justice by zip code, in my opinion, is an unfair administration of laws. So now, you start looking at it. I have two types of people that serve with me in council. One of them, like yourself, wants to save souls. They care about the human being. They care about the human condition. The other member wants to save money. I don't care about your cousin or your uncle or your nephew. I care about the fact that it costs $130+ a day to incarcerate that individual. And how do you reduce that? So one member might want to save the souls. Other member wants to save money. This reform addresses both of them. So
Great.
if I can keep you out of incarceration and shift, as our report suggests, from re-entry to pre-entry, before you get there, we want to stop you from ever going through that process. So what are some of the things that we found out? That if a young man can't read by the time up to par, by the time they're in the 4th grade,
Right.
you know how many cells they're going to need by the time they're 18. If you know the problem, you can reverse engineer the solution by investing more pre-entry in pre-K, so that that kid, by the time they're in 4th grade, knows how to read.
Great. Well, our next question for you then, there were some great points that you made, because pretrial detention is what we're going to talk about next. You expressed your concerns about this reform process, your concerns about public safety, the damage of pretrial detention of the yet unconvicted, and that of bias, discrimination, and prejudice on an individual and a zoning level. You did speak a little bit about that, but could you elaborate on each one of those concerns as far as the cause for concern and what you would like to see?
So there are 7,500 souls up on State Road in the various institutions that we imprison individuals. 60+% of them have not been convicted, but they're spending their time up in that facility. If I'm a prosecutor, I know if I lock you up, and the average wait time might be 120 days. By the 90th day, I come see you, you're ready to take that deal. Because you've had your share of cheese sandwiches, communal showers, and being restricted and in prison.
And maybe some losses.
And maybe, wait a minute, while you're there, you might have lost your house, you might have lost your job, you might have lost your family, because you're away. That bakery isn't going to keep you employed.
Right.
The rent is still due the first of the month, and you're unable to meet that. So your life can radically change before you ever are convicted of that crime. So we have looked at those consequences and have said that we want to evaluate. In Washington, D.C., there is no bail. No bail.
You guys took a trip there.
Yeah, we went actually.
We'll talk about that as well.
We actually did a day trip there, and the reason there is no bail, there's one or two decisions that have to be made. Is Mr. Davis a threat to himself or society, or is he not? Not whether you can pay the bail. There are guys and women that are sitting up on State Road that can't get out for $100 cash on a $1,000 bail. So every day that you stay up there, I'm spending $120 on you. But I have you here because of $100. So a debtor's prison, in my mind, is immoral. Either you are a threat or you are not. Now, in D.C., that doesn't mean you walk away free. They say to you, Mr. Davis, you were driving while intoxicated and you did some damage and you're facing some time because this is not your first time. But they may say to you, if you're willing during the time, we release you. To the time you go to trial, to go to rehab or to take anger management, whatever the circumstances call for, that will weigh heavily when you get back to court. I think that's repairing the human being and saving us some money. Let's say you're a little more dangerous than that. Then we should use GPS technology to make sure at 6 o'clock you're home, or where we know where you are.
This is a serious problem, not only in America, not only in Philadelphia, but across the United States. You and the special committee, you recently traveled to Washington, D.C. to get a look at the pretrial detention model. From my understanding, it is very different from our pretrial model here in Philadelphia. Can you give the general public some insight on what stood out to you and how that trip may help us here in Philadelphia?
So if I release you, that same individual that did the DUI, but I don't ask you to go to rehab, so you go right back to the bar. There is no condition upon your release except that you had $100. So the same people, places, and things, which is a common term in rehab, you go right back to. And whatever those human pressures are drives you to do that again. So there is a repetitive cycle. In DC, nobody leaves for free. You have a condition. If it was domestic abuse, there's a stay away order attached. Okay. And if it's multiple times, we may say you have to go to anger management. So if you want to leave here, you need to agree to these terms and conditions, whether it's stay off our block, whether it is go check out what's bothering you. And then the judge, when you come back, weighs heavily. Either you did not do it or you did. And that is a part of the sentencing. Here in Philadelphia, if you got $100, go ahead home. How does that help the young lady that he goes home to, that he repeats, I wasn't nothing, I got $100 in my back pocket. I'm going to hit you again. And I paid $100. Well, these things are restorative justice, meaning, why are you here? And how can we prevent you from coming back? And in the long term, it helps society. And in the short term, it may cost us more. So if I invest more in pre-entry, then that means get your help now. Don't wait until I sentence you to 2 years, where you're going to reduce your intake of drugs because you don't have access. But when you come right back out, same people, same places, same things. So let's start dealing with it now. Let's invest on this end so that we don't have to take corrective actions in the end. And that's the way it works.
Great. All right, criminal justice reform is a slow process. We all understand that. What are some of the things that must be done after all the hearings are over, all the recommendations have been assessed, and are ready for implementation? Will we need to write new legislation? Will we need to shift budgets, increase taxes for new programs? How long before those that get arrested really get to see the benefits of a reform system? 2018, 2019, 2020? What is your foresight on that?
Good question, right away. There are low-hanging fruit that we can do right now that we're going to, in this budget year, there were 3 recommendations that were approved by council yesterday. One of them was to invest in GPS technology, which are those ankle bracelets. So immediately that's going to have maybe a 15 to 20% impact on the census up in State Road. Okay. So you don't need to be here, Mr. Davis. You're a God-fearing man. You're not a bad person. You had a bad day. Not a bad person. You had a bad day.
And a minor crime.
For a minor crime. So guess what? You're going to sit in your living room. You're going to be responsible for whatever those covenants that we put in your release.
Right. Stay
away order, rehab, whatever. But at night, you're going to come back to your house. Now, I mentioned the 2 types of people we have to appeal to. One who's trying to save souls, one who's trying to save money. We do both. You have to go to rehab.
Right.
But you're not getting your eye fixed, dental care up that we have to pay for while you're there. Some people go to jail just to get health care. Yeah, my teeth have been bothering me. Guess what? I get free dental, and God knows I want them to have free dental, but not at society paying for it. You go to Temple Dental School, we can work it out, Obamacare, because he does. You can get on that. But this is a hard way to get the basic human services that an individual needs. So immediately is the answer. In this budget, we have another thing that we are trying to do, Mr. Davis, is day reporting centers. So instead of going to jail, spending the night eating cheese sandwich in gladiator school, you report to a community center at 7 a.m. We give you cereal, coffee, and donuts. You get in that orange jumpsuit and you go out and you clean some lots. You remove some graffiti. You help a senior get their snow removed. At 12 o'clock, you come back and we give you soup and a sandwich. Then we start working on you. That rehab will be there. That anger management class will be there. Those responsibilities to improve yourself will be there. At night, that ankle bracelet, you go back. You're not sneaking around the corner to go do whatever dirt it was. So day reporting centers can replace prisons. There's a problem though. Do you want one next door to you? Right? And so, you don't have to answer that. But we have to change that paradigm as well. Because guess what? Those people still are next door to you whether you know it or not. They come home eventually. And they're your neighbor, you don't know. Guess what? They're not supervised though. They're not held responsible.
Right.
We just let them go. So in this scenario, they'll report to a place, so if a social worker and a probation officer had a baby, that's the new job description. Like tough love. Like, yeah, I care about you as a human being, but if you don't follow what's on that program, you will go back to jail. Because we have a responsibility to society, too, to keep you safe.
Yeah, public safety.
That's it.
Sure.
Primary.
Primary public safety with you.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't want to save your soul. I use the analogy, Warren, I'll give you the right hand of fellowship or the left hand of punishment. You choose. But there is a choice.
That's pretty good. Right here, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a quick commercial break, and we'll be right back with more from Councilman Curtis Jones Jr.
My name is Travis, and I am 9 years old. I want to be a professional breakdancer or actor when I grow up. It will take hard work and dedication to achieve my dreams and goals. I cannot afford to become a drug addict or alcoholic. That would just ruin everything.
Addiction, alcoholism, incurable diseases. Stop it before it starts. This message brought to you by GRIP TV's Youth Drug Abuse Awareness Project. Welcome back to GRIP TV, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your host, Warren Davis, and we're still here with the Honorable Councilman Curtis Jones Jr. We're going to go right back into the questions concerning criminal justice reform here in Philadelphia. So Curtis, I guess my next question for you would be, drug and alcohol addictions play a major role in maybe 70 to 80% of the lives of the convicted, incarcerated, and those held in pretrial detention yet unconvicted. Will reforms be taking place in this part of the system? And do you think there should be reforms made to the funding tool to make monies more readily available to the nonprofit groups targeting drug and alcohol prevention in youth, seeing that these groups can play a major function over time by reducing demand?
The simple answer is yes. The more complicated answer is that if it ain't measured, it ain't managed. And I know that was Ebonic, but I chose to say it that way. We want to do good, but we have to know, A, how much good costs, and how good are you at providing the good. We used to throw money at a problem when the treasury was full.
Right.
You could fund this program, you could fund that program. Now you have to fund the program that actually works, and you have to measure that.
Right.
I was on the board of directors of Genesis 2, which is one of the oldest rehab nonprofits in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And we were at a board meeting, which struck me strange was the statistic that said, and they were clapping almost, 95% relapse. We have a 5% success ratio. And I said to myself, I scratched my head and I said, well, Did you mean to say we have 5% relapse and then 95% success? And me not knowing that community as well as I should have, no, they said, no, this is great. Well, if we were in the private sector and we were making donuts, and 95% of the time the donuts didn't rise or they didn't taste good and we threw them out, will we be in business long? So a lot of those rehabs suffered because, you know, folk who don't care about saving souls, but care about saving money said, we're not throwing any more money into this. But there are successful programs that do different things that we have to find and then fund to capacity, because there's a correlation. I don't know the exact stat, but I'm going to guess the majority of all crimes happen under some form of intoxicant that the perpetrator is in, whether it's pills, whether it's something harder, whether it's alcohol. That judgment impairing drug helped to make that bad decision.
Yeah.
Got their courage up. And so we have to fund that. If you're going from reentry to pre-entry, in the stats suggest that that is one of the major causes of crime, we have to address it. So we are going to.
We think about prevention with youth.
Yes. So the drug of choice now, as I understand it, is K2 and synthetic marijuana and pills.
Yes.
And so they're going to prescription drugs, opiates, and things like that. We have to figure it out. Now, keep in mind, right-handed fellowship, left-handed punishment. You got these pill mills in our community providing prescription drugs to our children who are entrepreneurial and say, I can get this script, I'll get this drug, and I'll sell it for a large profit. If you are a pharmacist, not like our Mr. Nelson, and you're a pill mill, beware.
Yes.
Because you are contributing to the moral and economic and actual criminal element within our community.
Those are my sentiments exactly. For this last question, I want you to speak directly to the audience, directly to the camera, and I want you to tell us all, what do you need from us, the general public, to do when you say, or your committee says, you're having hearings?
Participate. I know you have a real life. You have to go to work. You have to pay your bills. You have to pay attention to your kids. You have to do those things in life. But you need to pay attention to these things too. Because whether you are an active participant in politics, politics is still playing like a chessboard around you. Second thing that you need to do is read. You need to read what I work for you. I am your employee. Every time you pay your taxes, you are paying my salary. How am I doing? Am I doing what you want me to do, or am I doing what I want to do? And I'm okay with you checking my record, but if you had a business, you had an employee and you never checked on them, that would be a problem. So when we have these hearings, come on down. Tell us your life experiences and what your budget priorities are. Because people can tell you they care about you. They care about what they fund. When we put our money where our mouth is, then that's what we care about. So we need to, as we produce these recommendations, we can't just say this is how you fix the world. How do you pay for that? And you do that through the budget process. So in January, when we're doing these budget hearings, and we're talking about the Department of Human Services or the Department of Health that fund actually these programs, you need to come out and speak your mind. Read the report, and then if you agree, come down and say it. If you don't agree, come down and say it. But say it. Let us know you care.
Absolutely. Well, folks, you heard it right there from Councilman Jones. That's what he needs you to do. And my sentiments exactly, you need to come on out. When you hear the hearings announced, we'll be announcing them on GRIP TV. We'll be announcing them on Facebook, so we know you'll see it. We'll put it on whatever social media we can, because as a community, we need to support these type of efforts and initiatives and support our councilman. Thank you, Councilman, for coming on the show today.
Thank you, and GRIP TV.
Brother, we appreciate it. The audience appreciate it. And as I always say, God bless you in your recovery. Stay strong. GRIP TV.